noticing, consciousness raising, and attention. When the focus came to be on the role of interaction in second language acquisition, especially how on what the role was of when the talk was simplified for the new learners, there came to be certain propositions about the role of noticing and consciousness raising and attention also. And in a while, we will talk about what those things are. An important thing that happened around the late 1980s, or the mid-1980s rather, was that Long somehow reformulated his interaction hypothesis. So where earlier he was talking about the pivotal role played by interaction in the learning of the second language acquisition, without actually proposing any model for or highlighting how does it actually lead to acquisition. Now there came to be a larger emphasis on the interlink between the language that exists in the environment of the learner, which he or she actually hears or listens to, and then the processes of learning that happen in the mind of the learner. So this interlink began to gain more importance, and we see that Long also reformulated his hypothesis. So the argument that was placed at this point was that environmental input is mediated by selective attention. That is, you can talk to a learner for a long time, but the learner would select certain parts of the sentence or the utterances or certain words that he or she would pay attention to. So there is attention of the learner is selective. It also depends on the learner's processing capacity. So you may correct a learner 1,000 times or so, and as a teacher you might have also noticed that one grows frustrated by constantly trying to explain something to the learners and the learners coming up with the same thing. So similarly, no matter how you simplify the language when talking to a child, the child will acquire a language only when he or she is at the right developmental stage to pick up that structure. And it was also argued that the negotiation that happens between the teacher and the student, or someone who is proficient in language and someone who is not and just learning the language, is also pivotal to understanding, to picking up the second language acquisition. And this negotiation is also seen as an evidence of learner's processing capacity. So how the learner actually tries to arrive at the meaning by asking for clarifications and confirmations leads to, yes, second language acquisition, but in itself it is also evidence of his or her developmental stage and language processing that takes place as a result. Within this negotiation, now when we say negotiation, it doesn't mean we are actually negotiating some, in a job interview or negotiating some big deal. Negotiation over would mean when two people, especially the learner who is trying to understand the message of a more proficient speaker of the language, constantly ask for clarification or confirmation, or similarly someone who is good in language and he is spoken to by the second language learner, he or she also tries to understand the intentional meaning of the learner. So this is called negotiation. Within this negotiation, it is argued that negative feedback is very facilitative, and similarly, giving negative evidence is also helpful. What is negative feedback and what is negative evidence? Negative feedback is just correcting the learner if he is not using the right word to indicate what is being said, or a recasting, saying that thing again, drawing attention to what is being to the wrong structure which has been creating problems. And this drawing attention to the wrong structures is also called consciousness raising or attention or noticing. All these words are used for this thing. In any case, it was argued that input becomes intake. People actually start using it through selective attention. Not everything is learned, something is selected. And consciousness raising through negative feedback, and directing attention to specific areas where problem is occurring is very important.